Bill Weldon, and I'm here with Andrew Cherise, and we're doing a webinar today on cyber liability coverage. And my primary job is to keep you awake while we go through this, because it's such exciting stuff. So who am I? I am Bill Weldon. A lot of you know me. If you don't, feel free to reach out. I'd love to get to know you. I've been in IT for 30 plus years. I've been owned RxIT for 23 years. And I invite you to check out our reviews on Google. Just go to Google and type in RX-IT into the search box, and then see what end users have to say about us. Okay, so originally, when we put this together, the plan was I was going to have an insurance broker or agent on the call. And we don't. And the reason we don't is because I interviewed several, and some of them don't know very much about cyber liability. A lot of them know very little. I was surprised to find that. The one person that I had hoped to get on this call was really just wanted to do a lot of marketing on the call. So we decided that even though I'm not a broker or an agent, or I'm not an expert, but I do know a lot about it. Andrew knows a lot about it. We've come to know a lot about it, unfortunately, by necessity. And so we're going to go through some ins and outs, because things are changing rapidly. And but I do want to emphasize that we're not selling insurance. We don't sell insurance. We are encouraging you to get insurance. We are encouraging you to contact your insurance agent. And if you don't have one or need one, feel free to reach out. I do know some, but that's not the purpose of this webinar today. All right, so first thing I want to tell you is what it is. And this is a definition that comes from AIG, which is one of the larger insurance companies. And you guys can read it for yourself, but basically it's electronic.
Share screen, Bill?
I'm not sharing my screen?
No, you are not. That's why I'm here.
Oh, thank you. That is why you're here. Oh, that is so embarrassing. All right, hang on. I'm sitting here going through these slides and hang on. It's just a different button. There we go. Whoops. So let's see. I want to share screen too. So you should just be seeing a panel that says presented by Bill Weldon.
Yep, that looks good, Bill.
Years in IT. Okay, all right. I don't need to go back through what I already said. I do need to pull this back up so I can see my notes. Okay, great. I went to the third slide already. Okay. There we go. Okay, so the definition of cyber liability, of cyber insurance, right? So the reason that we're talking about this today is this is not generally covered in your general liability policy. You may have a general liability policy. You may have an umbrella policy. I'm told some umbrella policies cover some cyber liability. One person's, they said it covers cyber liability, but it doesn't cover ransomware. And I've noticed that insurance companies now are selling ransomware supplementals, even on top of your cyber liability, because that ransomware is a big deal. So you can read this definition for yourself. I think most people know what it is. Who needs it? Well, people that have data records with personally identifiable information about other people. Now, technically, that's a name and an address, right? I mean, in Europe, they have what's called GDPR now. It's a big deal. Even collecting names and addresses, like in an ice cream shop for, sign up for the birthday club or whatever, that's considered PII, and you're covered by, you're not covered by anything, but you're under the auspices of this very strict record. So if you do an email and you're passing files back and forth that have any information about anybody, and this can be HR information about people that work there, this can be clients, this can be customers, this can be members, whatever the case may be. And there's varying degrees of records, right? If you are an accountant, Then you're going to have tax records. You're going to have financial information about people. That's really sensitive stuff. If you're a doctor or medical in the medical field at all, then you've got some really, really sensitive stuff with medical records, people's personal information there. And you're storing it in the cloud, you're storing it locally, you're storing it on the server. So basically everybody needs cyber liability coverage. Again, we are not selling insurance. We do not sell insurance. We are just encouraging you to get it if you don't have it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about just what that liability is, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty, the good stuff that keeps everybody awake. I put together some stats. This was on last week's webinar as well, which was just on general cyber, risks. But here, the average data breach cost rises to 4.24 million in 2021. That's from IBM. They do a cost of data breach report every year. I don't remember what it was in 2020, but it was a lot less, right? COVID has been very good to the ransomware business, to cyber crime as a whole has really flourished during the time of COVID. The average ransomware payment is now up to 1.85 million. And cost of phishing scams have tripled. You can read all this yourselves. The gift card scams net an estimated 4 billion. I love this one. We see that. I used to like, these would really puzzle me, right? I'm like, who would fall for that? But the truth is, I mean, these are people who are just doing their jobs, and they get distracted, or they just have a senior moment. Sometimes they're in their 30s and have a senior moment. It's just life. It happens. And you read the reports and you're thinking, that's ridiculous. This is common sense. But I'm here to tell you that I've seen a lot of them now, and I've gotten to know, I know some of the people who have been scammed or almost fallen for the scams. Fortunately, I know more people that have almost fallen for it than have actually fallen for it. And then there's the human errors, and that's really what it's all about. So that's why you need this coverage. It doesn't matter what size you are. It matters how much data you have about other people and how sensitive that data is that you have about other people.
And I'd add, Bill, that, there's the business interruption aspect too. So data breaches can be painful if you, you're talking about, because you have all these requirements and notification, but also just, the keeping your business running. It's a big deal.
Right.
Takes you out for a while if something happens.
I want to make sure you're seeing the right screen. What are you seeing on the screen?
I see the threat slide, Bill.
Okay, good.
It looks good.
All right, good. Well, the way PowerPoint works now is you actually have two windows up.
I hate that thing.
Up with your notes. I'm always concerned that I'm sharing the wrong one. Okay, so I want to talk about specific coverage, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. This is from a large carrier, right? Yeah, it's AIG, right? We have two. In researching this, I looked at the policies of two of our clients, and I looked at the policies of more than that, just to kind of get a feel for it. And they're still all over the place, right? But they're getting smarter every year. The insurance companies are getting more intimate, if you will, about the type of data that they're collecting to give you a policy. The reason I'm going to show you this coverage, then I'm going to show you the same coverage for the second client and what the difference is. In this particular case, it's $1 million of coverage, but this company will do up to 10 million. And these are the things that they cover: the business interruption, and computer replacement, bodily, I don't know, I guess that's just bodily injury, property damage. I didn't know that figured into cyber liability, but it does. This is specifically cyber liability, and that's in there. Social engineering, the breach response, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. Crisis management costs, bring your own devices, and the social media and whatnot. I didn't get this, so I'm actually I reached out to their agent and asked the question of what that means. We also cover system upgrades. that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's in there. And reputation repair. And reputation repair is a big thing. It's a big deal, right? If you have a major data breach, even a minor data breach, it's something where you have to call your insurance company. You're required to notify all the people who are impacted or potentially impacted. And this is going to be very damaging to your reputation. So reputation, there are services that specialize in reputation repair. They're expensive. And your insurance policy should pick that up. Now, in this particular case, this particular company happens to be a law firm, is paying $1,700 a year for $1 million worth of this coverage. And the same coverage, the same company, I looked through the policy, everything's the same. And this is also up to 10 million, but they only have $1 million again. So that's a typo on my part. This is a financial services firm, and they're paying $800 a year for the same $1 million worth of coverage. So a couple of takeaways from that. The first takeaway is what's the difference, right? And I only discovered this yesterday. We're still looking at it, but it apparently comes down to the risk assessment that was done. A lot of all the insurance companies now for cyber coverage will send you a questionnaire with questions on it. We're going to get into that a little bit. But what a lot of them are doing now is they're actually doing a risk assessment on you before they will give you the quote and provide you with the coverage. And in this particular case, this company is doing a risk assessment. And I'm going to get into a little bit more about what that means. The other thing I want to cover on this slide is not all, I've discovered this as well, not all insurance carriers are the same. Like I said, some of them do risk assessments, some of them don't. Some of them have questionnaires from hell. I mean, just literally asking you about absolutely everything under the rug. And others have 10 or 12 questions that are fairly easily answered. The one thing they all have in common is they've all gotten more aggressive with those questionnaires particularly over the past few years. So be ready for that with the next questionnaire that comes along. The other thing I would say is when you're going to get this coverage, I would ask the broker or your insurance agent about the insurance company that's going to provide the policy. Ask them how much did they pay out in claims last year for cyber liability. And that's more, I'm just curious kind of thing, because I'm thinking that the ones that haven't had to pay out the big claims yet, they're the ones that still are kind of lackadaisical with those assessments and whatnot. So, and again, these prices seem to be all over the map as well. So that being said, I just went to slide 9. There we are. I went to slide 10 by accident. There we are, slide 9. Insurance companies don't like risks. And the questions on the questionnaire are critical to be answered correctly. So if you're our client, you need to reach out to us. We absolutely need to help you with that questionnaire. There's no way that you can answer those questions correctly. And it's not about truthful. I mean, you need to be truthful, but you also need to be correct with those responses, because what insurance companies like to do is sell insurance policies. What they don't like to do is pay claims. So if there's something wrong on that questionnaire, they may very well try to use that to deny a claim, right? And I'm sorry, Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, we're filling out questionnaires for clients, and they're getting more, definitely more questions. And my understanding is, because I know somebody who works in the insurance industry, is that, as claims go up, they're starting to look at, managing their risk, right?
Yes.
So they're starting to ask more questions about, hey, do you have some of these basic things? To some of the ones we fill out are like, do you have these very specific things?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I'm trying to find, I had one up, and of course I have so many windows open now that it gets hard to, oh, here it is. Okay. Well, that's the MFA attestation. Okay, well, here's something new. There are now ransomware supplements on top of that. You see that at the bottom of the list. So just to sort of go over that assessment, here is a questionnaire where I removed the data about the client. But this is a typical. These are the sort of questions that they're asking you, and this is very specific to email. But you can see that they're now asking you, like, about your endpoint protection. Who is it from? And you know, do you have SPF? Which is sender protection framework. That's a method, that's a spam control method, but it's also a method that helps control some of those scam emails. Do you have the Office 365 advanced threat protection? Well, if you're our client, you do. This client didn't, they have it now. I mean, you can read these for yourself, but it's very, very, it's very intrusive. And there's a lot of questions on here that you're gonna need our help to answer. So if you're not our customer and you're getting cyber coverage and you need help with this, I invite you to reach out, and I'll be happy to help you with that. The other thing that they're starting to ask about is the cyber training. We offer that cyber training. If you're our client, that's available at no cost to you. I will tell you that it's just a good idea to help people remember, because it's like I said with the gift card scams. Stuff happens, life happens day to day. People have families, they have other things going on, they're distracted. And this cyber awareness training is a good thing to have. And then there's MFA, and all of the cybersecurity questionnaires now ask about MFA. In fact, they're starting to put together, I will share this with you. One of our clients recently got this, and this is from a large insurance carrier. This is from AIG. Oh, this is from Travelers, right? This is them telling you about MFA, multi-factor authentication, and they're telling you where you have to have it. They're requiring it for you to get cyber coverage from them now. They're requiring it for your remote access to your office. They're requiring it for your backups. They're requiring it for your email. They're requiring it for absolutely everything. So when you have on the cyber questionnaire that you fill out, that liability questionnaire, there might be a broad question. There is in the Beasley one I just showed you that says, do you use MFA? And if you don't use MFA for everything, the answer to answer that correctly, you must say no. And then that's going to either, in the case of Travelers, they're just going to deny, they're going to say, no, we decline to give you coverage. In other cases, it's just going to increase the rate, or they're going to ask more, or they're going to ask more questions. And I predict, and again, I'm not a genie. I don't pretend to have a crystal ball, but I think it's a pretty good bet that by this time next year, if you're saying no to that MFA, you're not going to be able to get that. You're not going to be able to get that coverage. So I did want to touch base with that, because that is coming. The other thing that is coming is password management. That may not be by this time next year, but certainly by the year after that. They're starting to ask about it, which means pretty soon they're going to start requiring that you're using password management in some way. And what that means is they're already asking on a lot of the questionnaires, do you reuse the same password? And if you do, if you use my dog's name, whatever that is, or my kid's middle name, or my mother's maiden name, whatever that is, if you use that in more than one place for more than one service, then you have to answer yes to that question. Otherwise, you risk having a claim denied. So password management's coming. We're going to do, on the 5th of May, we're going to do a webinar and deep dive on password management, how to use one, how to implement one. People check them out, and then they find they're kind of a pain. They're kind of a pain at first to get used to. Once you get used to it, it becomes a very second nature kind of thing. It's really a good idea. It adds so much to the security. And I already covered the ransomware supplemental policy. And Andrew, do you have anything to add on this slide?
Just to mention, and we've only seen this in very few cases where they're requiring sign off from a qualified technical person to the technical questions. I had to do that for a client.
Yeah, and I have as well a couple of times,
Yeah.
but the majority of them are not doing that yet. But you're right. Thanks for bringing that
Yeah.
up. That's
Yeah.
coming as well. Pretty soon, you're going to have somebody.
Because maybe the feeling is like, that if the business person is filling out the questions, maybe it's okay, it would be acceptable for them to not know that there's not MFA on everything, right? But if they require sign off of a technical person, there's no coming back later, right? Be like, you told us.
Right, and what I should have covered in the beginning and failed to was Andrew is actually a CISSP, and Andrew, would you tell us a little bit about what that means, what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a certification. It's the only certification I have that I think really means anything, because technical certifications can be, kind of, vendor and industry related. But it's just a general knowledge of security. But the insurance questionnaires, at least the ones I've filled out, if I need to sign them, accept that as a credential too. So, it just, we have 2 CISSPs on staff because we have Sean too. So, we have qualified people to, who uphold to a moral code of CISSP to fill out questionnaires or help you with them.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Okay, I am trying to switch slides. There we are. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about filing a claim because we've been through this. We have a we had an incident with I'm not going to shame anybody here, but one of our larger clients checks a lot of the boxes, right? They take security very seriously, and we've actually, in this particular case, we implemented a lot of things for them first before anybody else, and we got familiar with some of the latest cutting edge stuff with them, and that's been a good thing. MFA on everything, and including and especially email. And in this particular case, the MFA is a service called Duo, which we use for some people. So you're getting most of the time you get a prompt on your phone, and the prompt is, do you want to allow this access or deny this access? Well, there is an option with this particular service to not use that prompt on the phone, and to require a phone call. So then you get a robot calling you on the phone saying, hey, is this access allowed? Say yes or no, or press 1 or press 2. And this particular client is very knowledgeable in cybersecurity. They have staff who are very knowledgeable. And they decided that the app was too easy. They said, that's too easy to hit that green approve button. We want people to get a phone call and have to say yes or no. So they have to think about it a little bit. So they did that. And recently, a person answered yes, and their account had been hacked, and they let the bad guys into their system, into their email. Well, they also have a lot of files up in the 365 system in SharePoint. So the bad guys got access to that as well. Now, the access was very brief because we have some other tips and tricks or things we don't talk about that we do that let us know that something hokey was going on. That was very suspicious to us. So we have some alarms that got triggered. So it was for about 20-25 minutes that somebody had access to this person's account. So we cleaned it up pretty quick, but they called their insurance company because the potential for liability, these were financial files about a lot of people. They were applications for loans. They had all this personal information on them. So they called the insurance company, and the insurance company immediately assigned an incident response team. And the incident response team was basically, they come in and do a forensic analysis. That means they get into all your stuff and look at and make a determination on how deep the data breach was what records were accessed or potentially accessed, and then notifying those people per the law that that their information had been compromised. And then the insurance company makes an offer to those people, usually to try to settle it. It's usually something like, we're going to give you free credit monitoring service or something like that. It is we learn so much from that happening. But the funny part of this is, later that day I talked to this person. We interviewed this person. We said, we need to understand what happened. This is not an indictment. This is by no means us trying to assign blame. We just want to understand how the yes response got given on that phone call. And the response we got was, well, I had company over and I was trying to entertain, and my phone kept ringing. And I kept saying no. And then finally, I just wanted the phone to stop ringing. So I said yes. So the first thing we learned from that is that there's a limit to the number of times that this service will call you. And if you say no after a certain number of times, it will stop calling you. And the number by default is 10. And it was the 10th call that she said yes on. So we immediately lowered that number substantially. So you're only going to get a couple of calls. Well, ultimately they decided to go off the phone call system and go to the prompt system, which we recommended from the beginning. I don't know that that would have been any better, because their phone would have kept going off with those prompts as well. But we've also lowered the threshold on that. So we learned from that. The next thing that we learned is the incident response team has security experts, and we had to allow them access into this world, into the world of this company. And so we needed to get cell phone numbers for those people so that we could turn on MFA for them. There's no way we let them in without MFA. And all of the cell phone numbers that we had to allow access for were in India. So we know that, and that, that alarmed us. I mean, obviously it's an insurance company. It's a part of the claim team. They outsource it. It goes overseas. But that's just something to be aware of, because insurance companies are trying to control costs too, right? So it's cheaper to get that kind of service out of India than it is out of the United States. So that's the recovery process. And then those notifications go out. You have to notify everybody. It's embarrassing. I know they were embarrassed, but they did it. They got through it. And then the insurance company hired a reputation defense company to help with that reputation loss, to help mitigate that and to do some PR and whatnot around that. And I don't know too much about how that process works, so I won't go into it. Andrew, do you have anything?
The only thing to add, and one thing that we learned too, was obviously the casual things we had good protection against, and so you have these kind of quick hits. But what we've seen, and they've had some other incidents as well that that have been thwarted, so to speak, is that they've been targeted. And when you get targeted, so it happens less often, but it's much harder. Like somebody who is figuring out like, hey, okay, I want to get to this person's email and I'm going to send them, multi-factor authentication requests and repeatedly do it and see if they'll click yes. The techniques of targeting are much more sophisticated. So it's less likely to happen to you. Quick hits for gift cards, those are sort of targeted, right? But when, if something targeted happens, it can be a pain. The other thing to think about too is, and we learned this through the process of the investigation working with the incident response team, is what they're trying to do is figure out what all was truly accessed, because they want to help limit the liability. But like if somebody gets in your email, you immediately have to assume they have access to every single message you've ever sent. Can they do that on a half an hour? Maybe. They could have downloaded the email, so it's a possibility. So you think about even small incidents with brief access, the only assumption you may have is you need to notify hundreds or thousands of people, or, it doesn't take much. Even if it wasn't actually accessed, you can't prove it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, and you make a good point. This is an industry now. The ransomware, the hacking is an industry. There are companies, I just learned this recently, there are companies in India, in Russia, and other places that have HR departments. They do performance reviews, and their enterprise is cyber hacking. It's hacking, it's ransomware. This is big business now. It started out as, we used to have these incidents, and there wasn't really a money motivator behind them. Somebody figured out one day how to start making money on doing this stuff. And, there's 1.5 billion people in India, and the young people get raised, they go to university, they study tech. I mean, it's huge in India. And then they find out they can, okay, I can go out and I can be an app developer or web developer or whatnot, and I'll make X amount per year. It's a lot lower than what it is here. Or I can go work for this company and hack, which is kind of exciting. And I can hack and plant ransomware for companies in the United States, and I can make twice as much money. So yeah, that's a good point. This is a real big thing, and the targeting is, they say that publicity is a good thing. Any publicity, it's not. One of the things about putting yourself out there with marketing or other things is you do become visible. And if somebody might glom onto you and say, okay, I'm gonna laser focus on this person, I'm gonna go after their credentials, I'm gonna go after their world, and see what I get. I see the company they work for, and they're liable to have a lot of good juicy data that I can mine and sell, and then maybe I can get ransomware in there too as a bonus. So it's it's not just one thing they're looking to do when they get in there. They get into your world, there's a whole lot of different things they can do to try to generate revenue from your data. So thank you, Andrew, for that. So I want to be respectful of time. We're 42 minutes into our, no, I started early, so we're not 42 minutes in. We're only 32 minutes in. We got plenty of time. Okay. But I'm sort of toward the end, so we're gonna, the first thing I want to put out there is, if you need help with your questionnaire, if you're our client, we should absolutely be helping you with this. It doesn't cost anything, but you need us. And if you don't have cyber liability, please get it. If you're, call your insurance agent and ask them about it. It's just so necessary for you to have it. If you want to schedule 15 minutes of my time to talk about this, or talk about anything really that's tech related, you can go to hello.rx-it.com, and there's a brief form there you can fill out, and you can get 15 minutes with me. You can email me on info@rx-it.com. And now I'm going to hit end slideshow so I can see the question panel if there are any questions. And Andrew, do you have anything to add with the contact thing here?
No.
Okay.
If Bill needs me, he'll bring me in.
I think I just hit the wrong thing. I hit stop slideshow.
I don't see any questions, but I suppose we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody
does.
if there's no question, that would be amazing if there were any questions. So, okay. I had a question that doesn't, I'm not going to answer that because it really doesn't pertain. Can I do yes, you can do some MFA for free. That's a good question. The question is, so I can do MFA for free. When you are, if you're in Gmail or you're in 365 mail, you should be, if you're a business, your business email, in my opinion, I believe Andrew's too, you should be in 365. We can make that a lot more secure. But either one, the MFA part is free. You can turn that on. In most services that I know of now, almost anything in the cloud has some form of MFA. And that's multi-factor authentication. If you didn't know, we keep throwing that out there. And MFA can take the form of it can take several forms. The most popular one is, hey, we're going to give us your cell phone number. We're going to text you a code. You put in the 6-digit code. Even my church that I go to has that. If we register, like we register for a dinner there, it now sends us a 6-digit code to make sure it's us when we do the registration. So all of those things are free. Now, in a business environment where you have a lot of different things going on, a service like Duo is a good idea. And the reason is because a lot of these companies allow you to plug in Duo or another company like it. In other words, you have one provider to get that, to do all those codes. Another one, the free one, is Authy. Amazon has an authenticator app now, as does Google, as does Microsoft. They're not all interchangeable. Sometimes you have to use a particular services app. Other times you can put in stuff from everybody into that one app. It just makes it a lot more manageable.
Or worth mentioning, Bill, that that there are some advanced features, and generally when we do MFA and Office 365, we want to use those advanced features, and that does require, it's a step up in licensing. So it's not like you're paying for MFA, but you're just paying for, you're paying for the tools you need to secure your business. Everybody would like to buy the most basic, cheapest plan, but the fact is most businesses need a minimum level of tools there to secure things.
Right. And the other thing I just want to add to that is, if you have any, my bank still does this, it really shocks me. If your MFA consists of questions for you to answer, like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, boy, is that not secure. People have Facebook pages, people have a lot of information about themselves out there, but also, even if you're a more private person and you don't do that, what about your best friend from childhood? What about your brother or sister? Maybe your sister has a Facebook page and she decided to post a picture of, here we all are at a vacation in 1979 playing with our beloved family pet Rover. And then one of the questions is, what was your dog's name when you were a kid? Well, I'm telling you, these guys doing this stuff now are smart. If they target you, they're researching you. They're looking into your life. They're finding out this information. If you have something where they're asking you those questions, consider an alternate service where they have more secure MFA. If that's not practical, here's what I encourage you to do. This is what I do. You can do it in Excel. If you're using a password manager, do it in your password manager. When it says what's the name of your first boyfriend or girlfriend, your answer should be purple orange hippopotamus. If the answer is what's your favorite color, it should be Volkswagens have wings. It should be nonsense answers that nobody in their right mind would do. Because the right answers to those questions are, people love to talk about themselves. There's a lot of information. You don't know who knows what your favorite movie was. You don't know who knows what your favorite book was. Maybe there's a book club you were in that you forgot about, and that information's online somewhere. So so color, number, noun is that's a good rule. Somebody just posted in here. That's a good rule. If you want to make up something, use a color, use a number, use a noun, put them all together and make up a nonsense answer. You have anything else for that, Andrew?
Nope. I go a step further. I use a password manager, so I just create random 32 character strings of characters and save it in the password manager. That's what we've done with some things that are administrative things here too, that we have no choice and we got to put that information in. And I don't want it to be Bill's childhood pet, because then I won't know the name anyway. So
right. No, it's exactly right. And it's so interesting. When we did our webinar last week on cybersecurity, we had that chart up about passwords and about how long it takes a hacker to figure out your password. If it's 8 characters, no numbers and no uppercase letters, and it's instantly, right? right? Now, if it's 16 characters and you've got an uppercase letter, you've got a number, and you've got a special character in there, it takes 200 years. And then there's all this in between, depending on the number of characters and whatnot. So that password manager is such a great idea. And I do the same thing now too, because one day, it's been years ago now, but one day I got an email, and it was really surprising because I had, like most people, I had 3 passwords in my arsenal, right? You go sign up for something, it's like, oh, you need to create a password, and right away you've got this mental block, but one of those passwords will pop in your head. So I kept using the same 3 over and over and over, and not realizing that LinkedIn has been breached, Dropbox has been breached, Yahoo has been, all those different breaches, almost all the big cloud providers, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, at some point were breached, and the usernames and passwords were learned. And one day I got an email from somebody that said, you're a terrible person. I know everything about you. And I'm going to tell everybody everything I know about you. I know everything that's on your computer, and here, I'll prove it. Here's your password. And it had one of my passwords on there. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I certainly don't want people knowing everything on my computer. I don't think there's anything I would go to jail for on my computer, but who knows? So, but I learned that day, I researched and learned about how they did that. And that's when I learned about the dark web and passwords being, from those data breaches, being available and being sold. So I'm not going to deep dive on that because we're covering that on the 5th of May. Mark your calendars. I forgot what we're calling that. I think I have it here. It is
Cinco de Concertina, right?
Yes, that is exactly what we're going to call it. Which is the 5th of password. So it doesn't really make any sense. Contrasena is the Spanish word for password. It's Cinco de Mayo that day. So that'll be at 11 o'clock on Thursday, May 5th. And you look for an email from us with a link to register for that. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'm going to give everybody back 3 minutes of their day. No other questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming. Really appreciate your sitting in on this, and hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep. If I did, I apologize. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
See you, Bill.